Balance is not remaining in perfect stasis all the time, but a process of swaying a little to the side and then coming back. That's the first sentence of the first entry that I wrote in my mirror book, my reflection journal about my path in the year 2015. As we are approaching the end of 2015, literally today, it is of course time for my 2015 year in review. If you're joining me for a year in review for the first time, welcome to my life. If you've been following for years and years, I hope you continue to enjoy these. I know several of you specifically look forward to these videos. And I did not do a lot of very in-depth going into all of my videos, all of my posts, things like that, but I did find some major things that happened throughout the year. So here we go. At the end of 2014, I was living in this apartment, but with a roommate, and I was in a relationship, and I had just started a new business as an independent consultant for Pure Romance, which is a relationship product company, the leader in relationship enhancement products. And so that was a new thing then. In January, I had my first Pure Romance party with my sponsor as kind of my co-pilot there. So I kind of introduced my business to some of my close friends, got that started. I also, at the end of my 2014 video, had mentioned that Raymond Buckland had watched a video that I did on his big blue book for Pagan Perspective, and he told me that I did a good job or whatever. I tweeted about it, showed that in the last video, and in January of 2015, he retweeted it, or he favorited it, or something. He favorited it. Whatever. It's on the screen. You can see it. And that was a big deal for me, and I was like, oh my gosh, this is just crazy. Awesome. So I was working on a production of a show called The Real Inspector Hound in January. I was playing the role of Felicity Cunningham, and I also saw a production, was it a reading? I think it was all readings. From my college was doing a semester of readings, so I saw their production of Game of Love and Chance, which was excellent. In February, I had my launch party for Pure Romance, which is where I invited a bunch of people that I knew, and it was actually my first party as a solo consultant, doing the demo and doing everything and taking the orders and stuff like that by myself without my sponsor there as my co-pilot. So that was fun. My cousins and some friends of mine that I met through Pagan Pride and things like that were in attendance. I was still rehearsing The Real Inspector Hound at this point, or no, we were performing The Real Inspector Hound in February. And I also started rehearsals for the musical that I was stage managing, which was a production of The Music Man, at the same time. So I was rehearsing for Music Man throughout the week and performing Real Inspector Hound on the weekends and also working during the day. I was very busy during that time. It was crazy. And I saw the next reading in my college's series, which was a student-directed production of the Nina Variations, which I had also never seen before, which was really good. In March, I saw a staged reading version, non-musical version of The Fantastics, again, done by my college, which was excellent. I also saw The Diary of Anne Frank at the local theater where I usually work, and I saw Catch Me If You Can play a musical, a stage musical version of, you may be familiar with the movie version with Leonardo DiCaprio about Frank Abagnale. I saw that at a local high school because some of the people who were in it were in The Music Man that I was working on, so I went to see them, and it was really enjoyable. In March is when I posted my first video of the year about my spiritual progress and the shifts that were going on. But actually in March, the one that I posted, Take No Shit, The Shift, was before I was really even aware of how much those shifts were going to be a big thing for me this year. And I also posted a Dear Me video, which was a campaign that was happening around International Women's Day, which was fun. You can watch that if you like. I also started to get more in touch with my stepsister, one of my stepsisters. I actually have three, and one of them in particular wanted to get to know me a little bit more, so that's kind of when we started communicating more, and we've been hanging out a little bit more throughout the year, which has been nice. And that started in April. And in March, and then in April, I did vlog every day in April at the same time that I was doing tech for The Music Man, which I was stage managing. So that was rough, just to say the least. I also, of course, did Earth Day with my church. If you've watched my previous year in reviews, you know I always mention that I work on the Earth Day service with my Green Sanctuary Committee, which I am the co-chair of. So we did that in April. I also attended my first ever Hank Green concert in April. It was part of the Tour Because Awesome. That was super fun. I have a vlog from that. There's a vlog from every day in April, obviously. So I knocked something over. So you can see all of that. I also, once again, taught an acting class at Tri-C, which is a local community college in the Clevelandish area. And it was for an undercover ops class. I've been asked a couple years in a row now to go and talk to them about acting strategies and how to form their character when working undercover, which is incredibly interesting, not being something that I know a lot about from their point of view, but just sharing what I know, and they can take what they can use and leave the rest kind of thing. Also, my boyfriend graduated from grad school in April, so I attended the graduation, and my shiftiness, my personal practice took a major shift into a form that told me clearly what my message was at the time, which I then shared with all of you during, I think, the last video of Vlog Every Day in April, which was to speak my truth. And that was kind of the beginning of that. In May, the person that I was living with finally got the hell out of here. It was a really bad situation by the end of it, actually halfway through, and then by the time it was actually over, it was pretty bad. So that finally ended in May, and one of my friends from college moved in with me to make the ease of transition with the lease, because the lease was not up yet. She moved in with me to help out. She was also actually working with me at the tea parlor and also on my crew for the musical. So she probably got sick of me. She never said so, but if she did, you know, she never said, but she probably did. In May was also the day that I missed the beach cleanup that I was supposed to attend, and there's a vlog from this day as well, because instead I took a walk in a local park district and cleaned up some garbage, and I went to yoga that morning. That was the first time that I took a yoga class, so that's when well, at this location, I've taken them before, but that's when I started kind of getting back into doing yoga as a semi-regular practice. Yeah, and I saw a teen production at my community theater of Pride and Prejudice, which was really enjoyable. I love Pride and Prejudice, so that was fun. In June, I did a pure romance party for my cousin for her wedding, which was very fun. And I auditioned for a show called The 39 Steps, which was at my local community theater. I was in a staged reading at my college of a show called The Great God Pan. Look it up. I can't even, just look it up. It was a good time. We performed it for alumni weekend, and it was, I think the oldest person in the cast was an alumna from the class of 1960, and then all the way to, I'm graduating class of 2012 from college, and there was someone there who had just graduated, I think in 2014, I want to say. Can't remember for sure, but after me. So we had kind of a whole range. It was really enjoyable. And of course, my cousin's wedding was that month. We did her party at the beginning of the month, and then her wedding was later in the month, actually on the day that I performed The Great God Pan for alumni weekend. So I went from there to the wedding reception, missed the ceremony. The reception was a good time. I also saw a one-day-only performance of my community theater did Around the World in 80 Days for the local arts jam, and that was really fun. One of my good theater friends was in that, really impressed me, did an excellent job. I told him how much I was impressed, and he still doesn't know why, but it was really good. It was very enjoyable. And I think I didn't write this down when I was doing my notes about this yesterday, but I think June is when I launched my Patreon campaign. It was somewhere around June, July, somewhere in there that I launched Patreon. And also my path shifted slightly again to the side from speaking my truth to being my true self. So that was a big thing. That was kind of weird. I didn't know what to make of that. So I got cast in the 39 Steps that I had auditioned for. There's only one female actor in the show, so I got to be that female actor and play 3 different roles. And so in July, we were rehearsing for the 39 Steps, and on the 4th of July, I did a tea cleansing ritual that Sheldon kind of suggested that I do. Well, he just suggested the idea that I do it, and then I came up with it myself to try to kind of cleanse everything, my entire being, not just the space around me, but also internally, because I had a lot going on at that time, and my dreams were very disturbing, and there was just a lot going on that was still really bothering me, so Sheldon suggested it. I did that on the 4th of July, and after that, like the following night, and for the rest of the month, I had a lot of really big, really important symbolic dreams that were kind of confusing, but then, you know, all of a sudden it clicked and I knew what it meant, and it was kind of terrifying in a very exciting way, like things are happening and am I ready for it? And my stepsister was actually involved in one of the dreams, and so I was kind of confused about like what's her involvement going to be in the continuation of my path and stuff like that. But yeah, so just a lot of big stuff, and I spent the 4th of July with my good college friend who I've mentioned in these videos before, and my boyfriend, and our friend's boyfriend. So we got to spend time together on the 4th of July and see fireworks and everything. It was a really good time. In August, I hosted a Lammas service, and by hosted, I mean I did a Lammas service at my Unitarian Universalist church. Like I designed it and then executed it. I don't know what word I'm looking for. But anyway, I did that. That was fun. And I went to, at the medieval fair, because I was going to the medieval fair in July and August as much as possible. Didn't work there again this year. At the medieval fair, I met one of my viewers who I had never talked to before. I don't think she had ever messaged me online or anything, but she gave me a necklace and a letter that she wrote with a drawing that she made for me, and it was one of the sweetest things that I've ever received. And my good theater friend, who I mentioned before, who did a good job in that role, was with me when I met her, and he was with me when I read her letter later, after we took a selfie and then parted ways. And he'll tell you, I was very moved by it. I was very touched. And her words and her experience and sharing with me kind of completely changed the way that I see what I do in the world. So that was a huge thing for me. You know who you are. I adored meeting you and your family members and things like that. And it was big enough that I put it on the year in review. Seriously, love you. So I went to GLMF a lot. I also went to Cleveland Pagan Pride Days at the end of August, and it was the first year that I presented a workshop there. I did a workshop presenting my research that I've done with Prejudice Against Pagans and just kind of what I learned in undergrad about stereotyping and prejudice and research and theories and reduction strategies and stuff like that, and just relating it to the pagan community and what we can take from it and what we experience and, you know, why it happens and what we can do about it. So I got to do that as a workshop, which was really exciting. And at that workshop, there was a woman who came up to me afterwards, and she said, I actually know you from the days like way back when you were a teenager and you used to have a blog on this site that most of us don't even use anymore. And I was like, who are you? What's your name? And she told me her name, and I legit started crying and just like embraced her in tears. This woman is someone that I've mentioned before on my channel or in messages or comments, just kind of to the side, because I only ever knew her online, but she helped me so much in the beginning of my path because she validated the things that I was going through. She taught me a little bit about her path, which is more British traditional witchcraft and family-based lineage. It's more traditional than my path in many ways. And so she kind of opened my eyes to that and was willing to share that with me so I could see what was similar and what was different. And also just kind of made me feel welcome in that overall community. And to have her show up at my workshop was just amazing. And we've kept in touch since then. We're good friends. She actually married someone that I know from high school, which is crazy. I love you both. I'm so glad that you are in my life. And that was August. Really exciting. In September, there's a lot of stuff going on here. So in September, my roommate who had moved in to help me out moved out because my lease was up by this point. So in September, I was living alone with my cat, Sierra, which is a good time. I was also going through some relationship changes in September. The relationship that I've been in for several years was becoming very strained because of long distance and things like that, and also just changing views and our lives evolving in ways that we didn't expect. So there were a lot of conversations happening, there was changing dynamics happening in September that was difficult. And we were performing the 39 Steps, the show that I was in at that time. After that show closed, it was only in September, 3 weekends in September, I was spending a lot of time, especially with my female friends, who I had not seen in a long time. I always had this feeling that I don't have a lot of female friends, but I really do, and they, like, want to see me, and I want to see them, but we don't always have time, because they have families and kids and whatever, and I have, like, shows and work, I don't know. But I got to hang out with several of my female friends, which was very important to me, kind of coming back to that place. I also took up crocheting again, which is something that I had done as a child. My grandma taught me how to crochet. Started doing that again and watching a ton of movies. And it would just be like me at home with my cat Sierra, watching a movie, crocheting stuff, just having a blast. Having a good time. In September, I also met with one of the people in charge of the organization who now runs Cleveland Area Pagan Pride. This was the first year they had done it all by themselves, and they wanted to talk to me about becoming more of a member of the organization, or working with them more closely and formally on these events in the Cleveland area pagan community. So that is supposed to start in 2016. We just talked about it then and kind of wound down, and that'll be more of a thing in 2016. So that's really exciting. It's kind of a new thing for me and also for them, having just met me, seen my workshop, everything like that. They decided they like me, and I already like them. I've been going to the event for years now, and so they're pretty cool. I like them, so that'll be a fun time. In October, I saw one of my Cleveland area theater friends who I originally saw in Shakespeare in the Park type shows with my friend Derek. We would go and see him, and well, at the time we didn't know him, but we had seen him in a couple shows, and then got in touch with him because I saw a commercial he was in, and I messaged him and I was like, hey, it's a crazy story. I'm not going to tell the story right now, but anyway, now we're friends, and he invited us to see a show that he was in last year, and then this year he was in another show in the Cleveland area called The Happy Sad, which I went to see, which was perfect for me because it was all about, like, relationship dynamics and weirdness and, like, new things and different, I don't know, ways of going about things and, like, what love means and what relationships are and stuff like that. And it was a really good time, and we hung out afterwards and discussed the show and talked about our lives and got drinks and stuff like that. And then we went to the cast party, and that was a good time. And I wanted to go see the show again, but I didn't get to. I went to the Cleveland Witches Ball in October, hosted by the same people who run Cleveland Area Pagan Pride, and I wanted to make myself a witch's hat. So I spent 10 plus hours total over 2 or 3 days cutting apart this old thing that I had. I have to do a blog about this on my Happy Snipping blog. I just forgot. I have to do this. Ripping apart this old costume piece that I loved the fabric of, but I didn't like the piece, making a witch hat pattern, looked up online how to do the measurements for everything, and then cutting it apart just so, and like putting it together in kind of a Franken pattern because the fabric that I had wasn't the right shape to make these full pieces, so it's kind of overlapped and patterny, and then sewing this hat, and I even sewed a wire in the brim and everything. Like, my costume designer from college would be so proud. So thank you, Betsy. So that was awesome, and I went to the Witches Ball, and I ran into one of you there. Angela and her husband were there, hung out with them, hung out with some friends of mine from the local area who I had met through my church, and they, like, went to the medieval fair with me, and went to the Witches Ball, and stuff like that. So we hang out, and we had a production meeting for the musical that I am now doing this spring in October. I went to see, at my college, they were doing a production of an assortment of Grimm's fairy tales, which was great. A lot of them I actually had not heard before. A few of them I had, and I loved seeing how they did it. It was very cool. storytelling, such a big thing. Such a big pattern. Also, my shift, I keep referring it as my shift, my path, took another shift, which I posted a hint about on my Facebook page, and no one tried to guess, like, what it was. You just let me leave a hint, and you were just like, we'll let her leave it there. No one, like, ventured a guess as to what it was. But it went from speaking my truth to being my truth, being my true self, to building my bones and having to start from the ground up. And there was just a lot of pattern, a lot of symbolism going on, a lot of skulls and bones coming into my life. One of my bosses actually gave me something with skull depictions on it, because that's kind of her aesthetic too. And she has a tattoo of an Italian proverb saying, Devo farmi le ossa, which means I must build my bones. And it means building yourself from the inside out, from the bones up. And that kind of took hold of me in October, which is a great time for that kind of thing to come up, right? Because there's a lot of Samhain stuff going on with ancestors and just recognizing mortality and death, and also Halloween, a lot of decor. That's a lot of the aesthetic as well. So that was an awesome time. I went to an art show also, which was completely about skulls and skeletons, with my friend who attended the Witches Ball with me and everything. And my Pure Romance sponsor and I did a promotional event at a Rocky Horror showing on Halloween night. So that's how I closed October. In November, one of my good friends from college had a Repo-themed birthday party that I attended, and I was dressed as Amber Sweet, so there's that. And also, of course, I went to witch camp in November, which had been mentioned a few times before that, and I was doing readings, raising money for it. Witch camp finally happened in November, and when I came back, of course, I was dealing with some re-entry, stuff like that. I have a literal list of topics pertaining to witch camp that I want to make videos about as we move into the new year, so you'll see some of that. I went to see the Addams Family musical at my local theater, which I had auditioned for, but I wasn't able to do because I was in the 39 steps, and the rehearsal process overlapped with our productions, so that was kind of inky. I also attended a circle with my British traditional witch friend who I reconnected with at Pagan Pride. She invited me to come and give my prejudice talk to her circle, and then I and one other guest got to join them for just kind of an informal Esbit celebration. So I got to see a little bit of how her circle operates, which was really interesting because, of course, there are some similarities because we're kind of like cousins in that we have the same like basic beliefs, but the way we practice has some differences. So it was really cool. And of course, I wasn't able to see everything that, that someone who is a member of that circle would get to see. It was kind of a mellow version because there were guests there. But we did a little meditation and stuff like that. It was nice. In December, I went to see the Santaland Diaries at Cleveland Playhouse with my good friend from college, Derek. And I worked on auditions for the musical that I'm working on now. I saw my local community's production of Mary Poppins, which was like exactly what I needed at that time because it was some magic and wonderfulness. It was a good show, but also just a lot of fun just because Mary Poppins is fun stuff. It's so good. And also in December, Sierra, my cat, who I've been living with for about 8 years, passed away. And I will be doing a memorial video for her, as well as, I didn't write this down and that's why I forgot it. It's mentioned in the Vlog Every Day in April videos. I did a whole vlog about it. Kitty Lizard, my leopard gecko, passed away in April. So I will be doing videos for them. And also, just the way that the universe works, the way that things happen when they're supposed to. There was a cat waiting for me at the Humane Society. They were waiving adoption fees for that weekend only, right before Christmas, and this cat was perfect. She looks like Mystery. She has a similar background story to Sierra. It turns out, when I expressed interest in adopting her and they shared her records with me, it turns out that she has the same medical issues and background as Sierra. So it was even more, like, you know, I was the person who was ready to take care of her. So she is here somewhere. She's adjusting to the new place pretty well. She's shyer than Sierra was, I would say. But there have been times where someone was over and she comes out and is playful. She kind of just like picks it. She's friendly and she's kind of a lap cat, but she likes to do it on her own terms, you know? She likes to come to you and climb up on you. She doesn't want to be picked up or sought out at all. So that's a good thing. That's going pretty well. I also, just as I was coming out of, you know, dealing with the passing of my cat and still kind of doing this re-entry from witch camp thing, a lot of my friends started reaching out to me at the same time. Like a good friend of mine who I met online years ago, like we were teenagers, and we still keep in touch. Every couple of years we reconnect somehow, like if our phone number changes or whatever, we always end up reconnecting. And that friend called me at the same time that my friend who I went to the art show and the witches ball with called me and said, hey, do you want to go out for coffee and tell me about witch camp? And so we did that, and that was a good time. I mentioned that in my last video. That's who I had coffee with, and went to the bookstore. And so that was a really good time. I also just, with that same friend, I went to a Buddhist temple in the Cleveland area. So we checked that out because my friend is interested in Buddhism and things like that. So that was a fun thing we did. And I also went to my local park district's solstice walk in December on the solstice, which is something I had never done before. I didn't know that they even did it. So that was a really good time. And I also, finally, I mentioned this on Twitter and on Facebook, I got my moon cup, which is a reusable menstrual product, which will save me a ton of money and also be healthier, and also just makes me feel like a huge hippie witch. And that's freaking awesome. I'm sorry if you have negative connotations about those words, but I enjoy it. I love it. It makes me feel witchy. It makes me feel connected. It makes me feel like one step closer to the sacred feminine kind of thing, getting to know your body and really what it's about and being cool with it, and it's not a big deal. So I spent my first cycle with the moon cup this month, and it went well. It was a good time. So, right? Like, when did you ever think your period was going to be a good time? Just saying. Also this month, just the other day, I received another ridiculously beautiful, heartwarming, humbling, amazing gift and note from one of you. And someone else that I met up with at the medieval fair. So, good stuff. This is my gift. And I would love to read you the note that they wrote because I think that her words are just so beautiful. But for the time being, I want to keep them to myself. They were intended for me. But I want to say thank you so much to you. You know who you are. And just to all of you. The way that you remind me what I'm doing with my life and remind me what's important and why I enjoy doing this. I cried reading the note. You can ask my coworkers who were with me. I cried. And I can't ask for more. I can't. And I've been dealing with a lot of negative stuff lately, and it's just, you know, not only is it good timing, so that helps me, but it's just, you need the reminder. So thank you. And I love this. That was my 2015 in a 30-minute nutshell. And 2016, I already have some really great plans in store. I will be attending priestess training in January. That's also a reclaiming, connected to witch camp type thing. I'm going with a girl that I met at witch camp, but it's part of her home community. And I'm driving there, and then we're carpooling together, which I had a dream about before we made the decision, by the way. It was crazy. Listen to your dreams. That's something, just listening to the messages from the universe and kind of letting them inform my decisions about my life has been a huge pattern this year. And so I think I'm going to title this video something like the shifting year or the year of messages, or I don't know. But the world, your life, your path becomes different in a better way when you stop ignoring the things that the universe, deity and the divine, if you believe in those things, but the universe what it's telling you. When you listen to that, the world is totally different. I want to close with the last thing that I wrote in my mirror book for 2015, which is actually the last page, the last entry of this mirror book, and I will be starting a new mirror book in 2016, which is perfect, so much newness. So the last thing, I'm happy, I'm healthy, I'm growing and learning and shifting, I'm opening up in sweet surrender to the numinous love light of the One. I know this isn't the end. It will get harder. There will be bad times again. And I will get through them. I will be okay. Remember the good. We are the ones we've been waiting for. Happy New Year. Don't forget to be awesome. Blessed be. And goodbye.